this life ain't fair. And I know that you're going nowhere. Well, don't blame me for what you've done, 'cause I know that you are having fun.
Welcome to the Clarified Realty Podcast, exposing the real estate secrets your agent doesn't want you to know. Here's your host, Tom Clary.
Well, don't you just walk away. This when I'll say.
Welcome to Clarified Realty Podcast. I'm Tom Clary. I'm your host. I'm a real estate agent here in the beautiful state of California, Los Angeles to be exact. I'm here with my co-host Ron Bruno, fresh from his sojourn in the Lone Star State. Welcome back, sir.
How are you?
How are ya? That was the
Hey,
worst.
y'all.
Hey, y'all. That's it.
There you go.
Well, I started off with some sort of Bostonian accent.
A little
which
bit.
You couldn't get further from Texas than that.
Well, you know, so you know the plural of y'all. Or
Y'alls.
All y'all.
All y'all. All y'all.
All y'all.
Very good. Well,
Yeah.
how did you have a fun trip? Was it productive?
Gosh. Very productive. So I help out my lovely, beautiful wife, Karen. She has her own business, and she brings together IT decision makers and their sponsors. And it's all for charity, giving back to STEM causes, which is great. So science, technology, engineering, and math. And
Great.
the conference was called InnoTech. And InnoTech had all different types of speakers. So sat next to the head of IT for Dr. Pepper Snapple and, all these different, chief nerds, right?
Yeah.
So like the head nerd of all these major manufacturing companies. And I was the booth babe.
The booth babe.
Yeah,
You were the sugar on top.
That's right. So my job was to man the booth and
Nice.
and also from a strategery standpoint, go out to meet all different types of sponsors that were there, right? So the other exhibitors. So
Yeah.
Karen gave me this whole list of, okay, I want you to go to this one and this one and this
Check,
one and this
check,
one.
check.
So I went to all of them, and I went upstairs to the sessions and talked to the executives there and asked them to be part of it. But overwhelmingly, like, everybody wants to be part of Technology Ball.
That's great.
Technologyball.com. So it is very cool, very exciting. And so it's a family business, you
That's
know.
awesome.
I
Well,
get to
shout
put
out.
my business development hat on and marketing and go out there and help the family and all for a good cause. So
Great.
That's
Well, shout
exciting.
out to technologyball.com.
There you go.
Check it out.
Yes.
So did you gather any news on your travels?
I did,
sir?
yeah. So I came across this one. As you know, we're talking to more companies, right, and helping them with their employees. 'cause
Having
we have that-
conversation with HR representatives.
That's right.
To basically set them up with educational programs that we can come in and talk to companies and tell folks how to basically go out and buy houses in this market.
That's right, and save $1,300 off the closing costs. So
Yeah.
that's not a bad
Not a
thing.
bad thing.
right? So we've got that corporate benefit program with guaranteed rate. So I came across this article in the LA Business Journal. So here it is: major LA employers concerned high housing costs are barrier to attracting and retaining talent.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's kind of okay. Well, duh, right? Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
But it says that 75% of employers surveyed cited the region's high housing costs as a negative impact on employee retention.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a real thing. So, I mean, I was just in Dallas, and Toyota moved out of Southern California, moved their headquarters to Frisco, and, Dallas realtors love it.
Yeah, right.
So they certainly love it, and Toyota, they enjoy it as well. Because of all the savings and the employees, they're now able to, basically get double their money and, double the type of home.
Right.
And everything's bigger in Texas. So
Absolutely.
There you go. But, really what I saw was, so what it says is, the study shows the high housing costs are burdening our leading employers, either by having to develop special hiring packages or subsidizing transportation and relocation costs.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a real challenge.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're trying to attract top talent from all over the country or all over the world, and they can't find a place to live,
Right.
then, I mean, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
Right. So you have to be creative.
Well, I remember back when I was, back in my old days of being a visual effects producer, there were certain jobs that would open up in New York back then, and New York was notoriously terrible in terms of, it cost an arm and a leg just to find some place to lay your head at night.
Right.
And so, it was a number of times where I would get offers and I would go, I can't even live there. I wouldn't even think about bringing my family out there because we live in a shoebox, and it would be worth our while. So I can totally understand how this. You can see how it dissuades people from making the move to be here. And on top of it, you have the different disincentives that other companies, especially here in Los Angeles, in entertainment, to go to to not stay here, to go to other countries, other states. It's just a kind of a perfect storm of not anti-business, but it certainly doesn't help get people to commit to being here.
Right. And I come from a business school background and working in the corporate world. When you are an executive, it's not your job to just say, oh, well, your job is to find a solution.
Right.
And, frankly, and I think this is why we're in high demand in this particular area, is we need to educate the employees.
Yeah.
Right. So we need to go to HR, and HR, they need to, partner with whoever their realtor or their lender is, and they need education because it's going to be harder. It's going to be harder to buy a home. Yep. It doesn't mean it's impossible.
Absolutely not.
Right. As the last episode that you released this week, it's not impossible. It just requires extra work.
You just need to work a little bit harder. And look, if there can be certain incentives that can actually help an HR department out, or if, look, there's ways that the community, that the government can actually help as well in terms of loosening regulations so that more things get built, right? Loosening up the market a bit because look, we love that, there's less inventory and prices are going up, but at the same point, you really want a healthy market. You don't want something where one side is starving, where one side is, oh my God, I can't find anything. That shouldn't be. It should be a nice, healthy give and take.
That's right. Right. And I do like some of the recommendations. So here they say among the recommendations to increase housing supply are investing in higher density housing at a range of prices near key transit centers.
Yeah, that's
right?
Huge here in LA, especially.
Well, I'm doing it right now, right?
Yeah,
so our office, we were on Lake Avenue in Pasadena, and we right-sized, and now we're in WeWork, right? So free beer, right?
Yeah,
so we
love
free beer,
which also is good while you're not driving.
Well, yeah, exactly.
That's another good reason for
another good reason
close to a train line.
But I found it more economical. Instead of to pay for parking, I'm just taking the metro. Right. So I just go to Arcadia and then take the metro over. Right. So the fact that they are putting these WeWorks near major metro areas is huge.
Well, and also when you look at the technology and entertainment that is still here in Los Angeles, a lot of it moved to the west side, Santa Monica and to, Playa del Rey and things like that. And so to have some sort of major, and now the Gold Line, I believe, is moving, directly through, from the east to there. And that is a boon for areas like more closer down towards downtown Los Angeles.
Right. So you're talking about the Expo Line. So
Correct.
The Expo Line from downtown to Santa Monica.
Yes,
right. And all of those communities along the way, you can't go through Beverly Hills, right? They won't let you drive through. No. They won't put it through Beverly Hills.
No, somehow it avoided going through Beverly Hills.
Some sort of word is there. What is it? Oh, NIMBY. Yeah, that's right. NIMBYism. Not in my backyard.
Not in my backyard.
But so these Expo Lines. So, and actually, Dave was talking about that. Remember, Dooley? He was talking about, if I were to invest in LA, I would be looking at homes near those key transit areas.
Right, exactly.
Right? So again, you want to, okay, this is what the issue is. Now, how am I going to solve it? So you have to know what's going. So if I'm an HR person, I would want to know everything about my particular area and where my employees are. And I would want to investigate. I would look at government. I would find out what's going on. I would go to city council. Yeah. I would talk to professionals.
City plans, looking where things are going to start, sprouting up.
Absolutely. I mean, we have Garcetti, right? So he's all for, our mayor in Los Angeles, Mayor Garcetti, he's all for looking at all these various ways that we can, have a better place to live, right? So it exists. The key is you have to go out there and you have to investigate. And that's what I found pretty fascinating.
And to just kind of put the final word on this, guys, if throwing up your hands and just saying, oh, this is the world I live in, it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help anybody else. It doesn't help you. So in terms of getting out there and making your own way, finding places that are, just because you hear reports that things are looking slim, that there's not a lot of inventory out there, that whatever, doesn't mean that you should just go accept that as the end all. That's the end of the story. No, that's not the end of the story. You need to get out there and actually do something.
That's right. And if you don't do it, what's going to happen is you're going to have, the economic development team in Texas and in Maryland. Right. They're going to say, y'all's got a problem, so we're going to make sure that,
plenty of land here in Texas.
We got plenty of land in Texas. Yeah. So that's what's going to happen, right? So you want to be able to protect that because people love living in LA, and you need to,
You have more control than you think you do. And to just be at the mercy of what your company, decides to do, that's not cool either. So, right. Take some responsibility into your own hands.
Absolutely.
So speaking of which, let's go ahead and bring in our guest for today. I want to bring in, it's Brian Darling. He's the owner of Darling Business Management, and he's a business manager himself. He helps folks in the entertainment industry basically organize their finances and manage their everyday needs when it comes to money. He works with actors, actresses, professional athletes, other folks that are in the public eye, and he's also very involved with LGBT issues, and we're going to get to that as well. I want to make sure we just talk about that and the way that he works with the community to really make a difference. So Brian, I'm so glad to have you here. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for inviting me. It's great to be here.
So whenever I have a guest that I haven't had on before, I like to start with just a little backstory, kind of what led you to basically being a business manager, and just kind of let us in on kind of what's your history. How did you get here?
Well, I'm originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And all my life I've always been, fascinated with numbers. So, I've always been this, wonky numbers guy.
Right.
And I was always fascinated by television and creative things. And that's ultimately what led me out to
When did you move here?
I came here in the mid-'80s.
Okay.
And, it's really cool when you get to see a play and go to the stage door and, get to meet the actors and tell them how you like their performance or whatever. So that was always very appealing to me.
Did you kind of see yourself kind of crossing over to kind of having some sort of, talking to them and like actually working with them?
Well,
how did you make that leap?
Well, I didn't think I was ever going to, be a big superstar myself. But
did you ever try acting or anything like that, or?
I haven't. But that may change soon. That's another subject.
Well, we'll talk about that later.
For another show.
Yeah.
But my first job in Los Angeles was really working at a bank.
Oh, okay.
And back then, we had these really cool little institutions called savings and loans, which no longer exist. But really,
nostalgia. I remember those,
especially in Orange County.
I mean, the main purpose of savings and loans was to encourage people to save.
Yeah.
And over the years, it's gotten into, selling investment products and annuities and all these crazy things that are going to make you so much money and this and that and the other thing. But oftentimes, what it really does is it makes money for the people that are selling these products. And, ultimately, the client is not well served.
Right.
And I saw a niche for myself specifically in the entertainment business, because there's a lot of money floating around out there.
Yeah.
And people, get discovered, they get deals, and all of a sudden they've got millions of dollars in their
Right.
hand, and they don't know what to do with it.
And that was really kind of where I wanted to kind of start the conversation in terms of, let's say, let's say that I've put out the number one single in the country now. Let's say my movie was the number one movie out in the box office. Now I've got all this money that's just kind of, flooding in. And I mean, is it that people start to kind of realize that, oh my God, I'm in over my head here? I mean, how does it usually happen where they give you a call? I mean, is it like, oh my God, this is more money than I never thought I'd have?
Well, I guess it might be like hitting the lottery.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you've got all this money and people start coming out of the woodwork.
Right.
Because now you're a target, right?
Well, yeah, you could be.
Yeah.
And I've said this for years and years and years. It's so important to have a team of people around you that you trust.
Right.
That's probably the number one thing, trust.
Is there anything, and speaking of trust, I mean, is there something that you can do, or that they can do, I should say, to kind of push off those kind of interlopers, those people who are trying to kind of get involved? You know what I'm saying? Do you ever counsel them on like, okay, look, you need to go to that person and say, look, you're not getting this, you're not doing it. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about that. Like, what's that kind of circumstance?
Well, I mean, with my entertainment clients, I actually, go down on the set and I just sit there in the corner and observe, who are they interacting with? How are they interacting with these people?
Right.
I'm not going to call anybody out in particular, but there's a lot of people in the entertainment industry that, see these clients as opportunities.
Of course.
And yes, we're all in business to make money here, but, there's so many crazy things that go on in the entertainment industry.
Tell me about it.
And the real bottom line is that everybody on the planet needs to know 4 things at all times: how much you have, how much you owe, how much you earn, and how much you spend.
Right.
And if you know those 4 things at all times, knowledge is power, right?
Right.
So
it really keeps the ship moving in the right direction.
Right. And it's your money.
Yeah. Right. So what is your day-to-day interaction with one of your clients? Like, is it a daily thing, or is it something like you touch bases once a week, or or is it for some clients is one way and for other clients it's another?
Well, from a business management perspective, let me just back up a quick minute. Mechanically speaking, what I do for my clients is I accurately record their daily income, expenses, and I keep track of where their money is. I reconcile the bank accounts.
Right.
I don't sell any products.
Right. Because you're concerned about conflicts of interest, right? I mean, in terms of like selling them something that you may profit from.
Well, there are other people that do that.
Right.
My 100% main focus is the client.
Right.
And that's just so important, and it's really so simple.
Yeah.
And in a complex world, you'd be amazed how many people overlook that.
Right.
And can't answer one or more of those questions on any given day.
Well, and I think that, and because I've kind of watched, because of my experience in the entertainment industry, and been able to kind of be close to people who are, those kind of creatives, who are, they're kind of on a different plane anyway. I mean, they're kind of, their whole lives and their whole careers are based on not thinking like we do. There's no other way to put it. They're out there. And I've seen creatives that literally don't know how to brush their teeth in the morning.
Right.
And that's also kind of endorsed by the studios, because they don't want the gravy train to stop. They don't want the creativity to stop, right? So what you're doing is you're coming in here and they don't even want to deal with the 4 things you talk about. For them, that's almost too detailed for them. It's not the kind of They're thinking about epic, stories or how, a song is going to sound. They don't want to even think about this.
Right.
Right?
Well, I have to make it make sense
Yeah.
to my clients. And it's not always so easy to do.
Yeah. Can you go a little bit into depth about that? Like, how do you, that level of communication with an artist?
Well, and we all know that the entertainment industry is, it's not real.
Yeah. In what way?
It's not reality.
Yeah. There's an artifice that is kind of supported by the businessmen to basically give this illusion to the creatives that they're, going to skate through, basically. And they do on lots of circumstances, like things that I know that when I was in the business, I'd be looking, going, how are they getting away with that? But it's because they're supported by the producers, by the, the businessmen, the suits at the studios, to basically get away with murder.
Well, the industry supports thousands and thousands of people at all levels.
Yeah.
In Los Angeles and, now many other places in the country as well.
And world.
Yeah. And it's a big machine, and we all have our roles.
Yeah.
And I think that these days, compared to when I first got into the business, you find a lot of professionals that want to perform other roles that, in my opinion, the client might be better served to have more members on their team
Than to have people wearing many hats.
Correct.
Got it.
For instance,
Yeah, give me an example of that.
when you hire an accountant, your accountant's job is to prepare your tax returns to the best financial and tax advantage to you using the current parameters of
Tax
whatever
law.
tax law is
Right.
in effect at that time. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily think that it is a role of that type of a professional, say, to be selling investment products.
Right. Absolutely.
The way that I would approach that type of a situation with a client is I would say, okay, we've got a certain amount of money that you're not using right now, and we may want to invest. Let's take a look at the professionals in the area of interest. Real estate is one of them. A lot of people invest in real estate.
Right.
I'm not a CPA. I'm not a realtor. I'm not a lender.
Right.
So
You stay in your lane, is what you're kind of talking about.
I stay in my lane.
Yeah.
And I sit right next to the client and I say, okay, let's take a look at this.
Yeah.
Are you looking to buy a property? Okay. Let's interview some realtors.
Well, but because this is a real estate podcast, why don't we go into kind of a little bit more depth here about, okay, when you have a client that is, okay, I want to buy some real estate. Let's just say they're looking for their home. We're not going to go into the whole investment kind of side, but I literally just want to buy my house. What do you do to kind of prepare them for? What is your role in all of that?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would ask a lot of questions. Why are you buying or selling? Well, let's concentrate on buying. Why do you want to buy a house? Are you looking to, some of the same questions that your realtor would ask. Mm-hmm. Do you have a job move? How far are you willing to commute? For the millennials that are just starting their careers, do you want to have a family? Mm-hmm. Do you need a backyard? Or would you be okay living in a highly densely, populated condo that's, walkable to your favorite bar?
But now these are questions that would traditionally be real estate questions, realtor questions. So how do you gain from those things? How do you help them as a business manager asking them these questions?
Oh boy, that's that's a great question. Might be a little difficult to answer. What I try to do is really tap into the personality of the client. Some people only want to work with gay people, let's say.
Right.
So if I know that in advance, I may be able to say, okay, well, I know some very good LGBT realtors that I'd like you to meet.
Right.
And, I look for personality matches. Some
Right.
people only might want to work with women
Right.
or,
Yeah.
things like that.
Right. So you're guiding them to these team members, is what you're kind of saying, correct? I mean, I want to
Right.
jump ahead.
I'm matching them up with the appropriate
So
professionals.
you're acting kind of as a
plural.
matchmaker almost.
Absolutely.
Got it.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I really enjoy that. I get a lot of personal satisfaction. That's why I do this.
Right. And you love to see kind of everything turn out great at the end of the day, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in this business for personal reasons. It just makes me feel good to help people in this way.
Yes.
Right.
You really don't have an agenda, right? So you're an independent third party. You're not selling anything. So you're just really listening to the client. You're asking them questions. And then based on those answers, you're providing them and you're making those intros to the proper professionals.
Right. I'm the angel on one shoulder that says, okay, well, let's look in and see what our options are. And I'm also the little devil on your other shoulder saying, this really I don't think this makes sense. And
By the way,
maybe you can't afford it.
some people might argue that you got the shoulder switched.
Well, yeah.
That's the devil going, you really want that house, don't you? That's you want a pool and you want to, yeah.
Well, yeah, I've had conversations with you. Quite frankly, Tom,
Mm-hmm.
I've had conversations with those types of people.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, let's just be realistic, guys. When you are looking to purchase a property, it is so important to realistically know or be very confident before you even seek out a realtor to know what you can afford. Let's say the
Absolutely.
number is $500,000.
Right.
I don't really want your realtor showing you properties for $700,000 or even $600,000.
And I'll let you in a little secret. Your realtor doesn't want to be showing those properties either, because he doesn't want to get later on down the line when you're in the middle of escrow and you can't do it.
Right.
So no, and one of the things that we've always said here on the podcast is that the chain starts with folks like Ron, folks like Tim Denton, who is our financial advisor that we've discussed with you, folks like you, to basically, you should know your story before you even talk to me, and
Right.
I'll be happy to show you the way to them. But if I'm going around showing you $700,000 houses because, oh my gosh, these $500,000 houses are way too small, and well, I'm going to get in trouble later on when I've pledged to that listing agent. These guys are good, because that's one of the things that I do when I'm working on the buyer side is I'm telling the story of these buyers and telling that listing agent, these guys are solid. These guys are great. You're going to make it through this escrow, because those sellers need to sleep at night. That if you go with us, if you say that we're going to accept our offer, we're going to finish this. So you coming to me with a $700,000 dream and only $500,000 in your pocket does not help me in the least.
Right.
Absolutely.
You're right. And it's so again, it's so important to work with. Ron, how many deals have we done over the past, I don't know,
like 10?
decade or so since
Yeah.
we've known each other?
Yeah.
It's really nice for me to know that I can call someone like Ron at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night
Yeah.
after receiving a call from you
Yeah.
saying, we need to get a pre-qual letter in a half an hour.
Yeah.
And
especially in this market.
and that just may make or break your deal.
Yeah.
So,
You don't have a deal if you don't have that nowadays.
right. So having that team
Yeah.
and knowing those knowing those people and having those relationships, I don't think it's really wise to skimp on it costs what it costs.
Right. Yeah.
And if you're not working with the right team, it's going to cost you more.
Yeah.
Right. So that whole meme that's out there where it's like, where they do the tattooing and it's a picture of, some stick drawing. It's like, what do you pay for a professional, or what's the cost of the professional? Because if you miss out and you don't work with, people in this room, then you could end up paying more because you're not going to get the offer accepted. Right.
So there's all these hoops that we all have to jump through. Now, you guys are licensed, regulated people. So when I have a deal that comes through with a client, Ron will say, we need this, 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 and this. Mm-hmm. And if you're accurately recording all of your income, expenses,
that should be a relatively
assets
easy
and
thing to just hand over
liabilities
then,
at
right?
all times, you're going to be able to get that stuff to him fast.
Pretty quick.
Right. And another thing, if I may, is, if you, let's take that, the starlet, right? So she just got her new role and she's now making $2 million and the future's bright. She wants to go buy a home. She's been studying acting and, in her hometown in Iowa, and that's all she knows, right? So buying a home, having a bank, these are all brand new foreign things to her, right? So having someone like Brian be able to really sit down and really become the business person, right? So the the chief financial officer of her life, and making, both my job and Tom's job a lot easier, because now you're going to be working with their CPA, you're going to work with her financial advisor, and all these players. You're going to kind of organize it all. You'll be the concierge. So when I send the needs list, okay, these are all the documents that we need, her eyes don't glaze over and say, where in the world am I going to get these things, right? So people that have those means to be able to have a business manager, that's huge, right? Because it helps all of us. And, you're really, quarterbacking that from that particular standpoint. Right. And I mean, business management isn't for everybody. Right. I mean, there's a fee associated with it. So.
Yeah. And, I'm curious about this. And I know that when I'm out there, helping my clients, I really kind of, whenever someone, look, I can do the whole where they want to have their hands completely off and I'll just do the deal and whatever. And that's fine. I don't really endorse that, because I really think that in order for you to make educated decisions, you yourself need to be educated. And I think that I'm curious if you also feel that way with your clients, or do you feel it? And that might be part of your role as what you do, in that you educate along the way, and then it's not really necessarily about leaving it in your hands and, oh, Brian's going to take care of it. You're also, I would assume, bringing people education as well as part of your what you do.
Oh, absolutely. And, there are a lot of clients out there, actors, that just want to be hands off, but those people hear from me.
Yeah.
And if I know they're morning people, I make sure I call them first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
If they're not, I've represented touring bands.
Okay.
A lot of these guys aren't morning people, so.
Yeah, the groupie gets shoved out the hotel door about 4 a.m. So,
right. And you really have to tap into the personality of the client. It's not just paying the bills and reconciling the bank accounts.
Yeah.
And for me, it goes much, much deeper than that. And, a lot of people I happen to love and adore Susie Orman.
Yeah.
And I'm not endorsing her. I don't know her. She's not paying me, but she puts a lot, and other people like her put a lot of good information out there.
Yeah.
And they present it in a way that lay people can understand.
Right.
Or at least understand to the point where it will generate in their mind to call their accountant or
exactly
seek out help and ask questions.
I know there's a
of
situation
people.
right now where I need to talk to my CPA. It's where it throws up the red flag in their head because
Right.
you've been educated enough to yeah, I got it. Yes, Ron, you had something you want to?
Yeah, so this is a little off topic, but pretty important is so there's going to be people in the entertainment world that are going to listen to this podcast, right?
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. So have you guys seen Sandy Wexler, the new?
Is that the Adam
show?
Sandler thing?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, no, I have not seen it.
You haven't seen it?
No.
Okay, Brian, have you seen it? Okay, you definitely need to see it. So Adam Sandler, he plays a talent manager, right? So he's like this, he's got the horn-rimmed glasses and he looks like, he has the disco jacket on and the disco collar. And he is the, he's like, business is family and, this whole thing. And he has all of these celebrities. I mean, it is just chock full of, obviously his team, right? So he's got everybody with Happy Madison.
It's good to see David Spade working still.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Rob Schneider,
Yeah, right.
all those guys. So, he brings in all of them, but then he brings in all these other people. And, one of the lines that I thought was hilarious was from Arsenio Hall,
Okay.
right? So Arsenio plays himself, and this is, back in the 90s, right? So, he's this guy that, patrols Sunset Avenue and, tries to pitch himself and try to help everybody being a talent manager. And, Arsenio, he said, he's like, hey, we should be working together. And he's like, you know what? I got enough white people working for me. And he runs and he just takes off. So, Brian, you're probably the best person to describe it. And Tom, you've been in the industry. So, okay, so I am an actor. I've got my new role and, everyone thinks that I'm brilliant. And now all of a sudden I hear all these different professionals, and, I hear agent. So what does an agent do? A business manager, a talent manager, a brand ambassador. Like, who are all these people? Who's a CPA? I mean, we, the financial advisor and all that kind of stuff. But who are all these entertainment professionals?
Well, that really is the 50 Shades of Grey, isn't it?
Because and you get a lot of chocolate with your peanut butter there too as well, especially with you have a manager who can sometimes represent deals and that can correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, there are lots of times you get together with a manager and let's say you have your writer and you have a script and they'll be your agent for it or and it's kind of this very blurry line.
Right.
Oh, and then you got to throw in entertainment attorney too, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that's
exactly.
another level.
Entertainment attorneys, financial advisors, that's a whole nother subject. Your financial advisor could really be an insurance agent.
Yeah. And a lot of times
Saying they're your financial
they're
advisor.
selling, products that are insurance products. Yeah.
And this is all okay.
It's not illegal.
It's not illegal. And it, at the end of the day, it might be the right thing for you. But if you don't ask the questions,
Yeah.
ask a lot of questions.
And also when you bring up the long list, the people who are going to last, the people who are going to have careers, they don't just ask the questions, they go out and they find those answers. It doesn't take a long time to do a goddamn internet search and find what a business manager does compared to an agent. What you can educate yourself and I hear these stories about people being victimized about, I thought he was an agent, but he was a manager. It's like, well, then there's a part of it that this is you putting it off on somebody else, your own failure into somebody else's hands when you should have been educated. You should have either gone out and did your own research or talked to someone who is a professional in the business, whether it be Brian or, not me because I'm a real estate agent. I'm not going to say that I'm some sort of expert on that stuff, but people who are in the entertainment industry to say, look, this is the person you should be talking to. This is his box. This is the person that the other person you should be talking to. That's their box. You need to be, I always look at like sports guys, right? Who come out and like they win big in the Super Bowl or whatever like that. And then they lose all their money, like, Mike Tyson or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's literally like, I got taken advantage of. And it was not because.
That's pretty good.
Thank you very much. I can't do a Southern Texas accent. But
Boston.
but for some reason I can do Mike Tyson. But what I'm saying is that there's a part of me when I listen to that go, well, dude, how much did you, instead of buying your third Tiger why didn't you go onto Google or YouTube, and you probably could have figured it out. Anyway, that's my little soapbox
Well, you know,
moment.
you can't really tell people how to live their life. It's their
of course,
life.
of course.
And, you know, I'm not swiping their credit cards. So,
Yeah.
you know, the ultimate responsibility, in my opinion,
but do you-
does lie with the client ultimately.
It's funny you mentioned that, the swiping of the credit cards, but do you ever say, oh, hold on a second? Do you ever like say, wait, hold on a second, you maybe shouldn't?
No,
So that doesn't cross over into your lane.
I don't. It's not my job to tell somebody what or what not to do
Got it.
with their money. That being said, you know, and because I know everything about these people,
Right.
and, you know, that's the one big benefit of having long-term relationships with people.
Yeah.
You know, you're with them in the good times and you're with them in the bad times.
Right.
And there's a lot of people in the entertainment industry today that are really kind of worried because, you know, there's some negotiations happening and, you know, some stuff going on, and we might not have a lot of production
Because of the Writers Guild strike.
for the near term. Yeah.
Right. Potential. Yeah.
And those who are prepared for that, those who have an emergency fund, those who have been frugal and have lived within their means,
Right.
or preferably below their means, are the ones that are going to be most. They're going to get through this
They're
a
gonna
lot
pop-
more easily.
They're going to pop back up and be fine.
Right.
Yeah. And the last Writers Guild strike, if I remember correctly, was about 100 days.
Yeah, 100 and some odd days.
So, you know, and that's, you know, for some people, they can handle that kind of hit better than other people, you know.
And it's not the A-listers that are really going to be affected. Yeah, they're going to complain about it, or, you know, they might not.
Oh, they'll
make
probably be marching along with the WGA. I mean, that's well, because look, the writers, we don't have movies about the writers. Everybody likes to say the celebrities are, you know, completely, you know, it's a box office draw because Leonardo DiCaprio showed up on set. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he brings in the money. But if the writers don't write the words to put into his mouth, nothing happens.
Right, and the stagehands don't work.
Right.
And all the below-the-line people don't work. The editors don't work.
Right.
You know, the executives are fine.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you have this type of turbulence in an industry that's turbulent anyway,
Right.
you know, I suspect, you know, if this really gets nasty, I suspect, Tom, you will be getting some calls, people that want to list their house immediately,
Yeah.
just to get rid of it
Yeah.
because they're cash poor.
Well, and that's assuming that there's still business going on here in Los Angeles anyway.
I mean, I
Because
would
so
tend
much
to
has
think
moved
think
away
that there's a lot of really big houses out there, you know, that were formerly owned by celebrities that are now sitting empty just because they had to sell to raise cash immediately.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't like to see that happen to people. So, you know, I try not to, you know, I try to guide them in the right direction so those kind of, you know, landmines don't come up for them.
Sure.
Life is tough enough.
You had something else? Ron?
Yeah, so I used to be a financial advisor, right, back in the day, and I said the same thing, right? So it wasn't my job to tell somebody they can't spend their own money, right? So my job was to manage the money, not to put up the gates. But if someone said to me, is this money gonna last me, or am I doing the right thing? I wouldn't sugarcoat it, and I wouldn't just be a yes man, because especially celebrities, they have so many yes men. I mean, like MC Hammer, sure, yeah, let's get golden tigers and fly all over the world and private jets and everything else. he didn't have anyone that actually was an advocate for him that actually said no, or at least, it didn't seem to be that way. Right. So as professionals, it doesn't help anybody to postpone the inevitable. Right. So we always talk about that. So when someone calls me and says, hey, yeah, you think I can get pre-approved for that? I mean, I should, right? I mean, I make this and I do this, and I'm like, I need to check the numbers. Yeah. Right. They're like, but it sounds, I'm like, I need to check the numbers, right?
You're not going to know for sure until you actually go through with it.
Right. I mean, because if I said, oh yeah, you're going to be no problem, and then all of a sudden there's something that showed up in the credit report that we didn't talk about, or, on their tax return, they took this deduction and he's like, you said it was going to be fine, right? So you have to make sure that you really, to really put your client's best interest at heart, you need all the facts, and you also, you have to be accountable as a professional. That's for sure.
And I think that, it's interesting because I look at the bane of our existence, the rocket mortgage people who basically, literally you can hit a button and everything's fantastic.
Right.
The birds and bees and, everybody, the fairies come flying down and, angel dust, and you get your loan in 20 seconds, which is utter BS. And it doesn't literally mean anything.
Yeah. And they give you an immediate approval, right? So they say you're pre-approved. Go give that to go get that to your agent.
But it literally takes advantage of the worst of people's fear of actually putting their facts together.
That's right.
Like there are people who would literally rather go to the dentist than get their tax returns together or do whatever. And I think that if there was some way to simplify that whole process in terms of getting that information together, so it's literally like people shouldn't be afraid of it anyway. Because what is it going to? If you hear no, okay, then you hear no and you move on and you say, okay, well, when can I do it? Not, I'm going to stop. Well, I'm going to stop everything because this one lender said I can't do it, or whatever. You need hopefully he or she is going to give you some sort of path to move along to eventually make it happen. But this whole idea of gathering the information being this arduous, terrible process is so I don't know why people. Do you think that it's because people are afraid of the reaction they might get at the end of it, of putting it all together? Or do you think it's literally just the process of getting everything together that people avoid?
Well, creative people, I don't want to generalize, but creative people generally aren't, that much into these, this type of minutia.
Yeah.
But, it's funny. I was just thinking about a client that I had. He bought a beautiful historic house right over by Occidental College. Whatever that main street is, what is it, Atwater Village or somewhere in that area, right? Mm-hmm. And he absolutely loved this house. I got to have this house. And Ron, I think you did this deal. And it really, money wasn't an option. I sent Ron the package. Everything, went through perfectly. And he was there for a month or two. And he realized that he had a neighbor 2 or 3 houses down that had a lot of dogs that barked all the time. So, and he ultimately ended up selling that house, 9 months later because he couldn't deal with these barking dogs.
Okay.
And then I called Ron again, and we sold the house. Actually, that deal was done by a Keller Williams agent as well. So. You just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the wherewithal or the appetite to know these details, I think it's a really good idea to invest and pay somebody to do it for you.
Got it.
In this case.
So as we kind of come in for a landing here, I wanted to talk a little bit briefly about your work with the LGBT community. And I want to look at it first off from the business side. And we kind of touched upon this earlier in terms of you talking about like that there were certain clients of yours that might, prefer a gay agent or whatever. But is there anything else that, in terms of that you would need to be taking into consideration with your clients that are, LGBT? I mean, do you look at them any differently in terms of, do you guide them in any different ways? Or is it just about comfortability?
On a
They're just more
macro
comfortable,
basis, not really. But the little caveat on that one is, as LGBT people now, we have a lot more rights than we had, just a few years ago.
Right.
And, we can get married, we can adopt children, and, that just brings a whole, a whole new bunch of stuff into the mix.
Right.
So, if I meet, the man of my dreams, we can go skipping down to the courthouse tomorrow and get married.
Yeah.
But, there's ramifications to that. In California, I'm not an attorney, but in California, which I believe is a community property state, if it doesn't work out in a year or two, you can't just say goodbye and change the locks and, move your stuff out.
Yeah. Generally not.
If you're the high income earner in that relationship, which is now a legal marriage, you might be paying that person to, because they may expect to, remain at the lifestyle that they were accustomed when they're with you.
Yeah.
So when I have an LGBT couple approach me and want to buy real estate, want to move in together, whatever, one of the first things I do is have you talk to an attorney.
Mm-hmm. Really? So
have you built the structure of your life, i.e., if something happens to you, do you want all your money to go to your partner?
So in terms of
your family or whatever, do you have
estate planning and talking to them about that whole
absolutely
process?
That's absolutely something that should be considered. And I'm not an estate planning attorney either. So
I know one, by the way. I'm married to one, so
yes, as a matter of fact, you
really
are.
Am,
you
right.
are.
Yeah.
And like with you individually, Tom, you're from the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
You know that archetype of person that's in that business.
Absolutely.
So, and that's really important when I have another person who's in the industry who's looking to buy or sell. You're a great candidate that I'm going to introduce them to.
Yeah. It's
to handle their real estate needs.
It's fascinating it's one of those things where when I hear about like, oh, I'm a fireman, so I can talk to other you kind of go, well, I don't know, really, is it that different? I will say, without a doubt, people in the entertainment industry, people who are creatives, have such a different kind of thought process, way of approaching things that I think there really is a difference in terms of how you talk to them, and they're really how you work them through certain transactions and it really does assist me because I worked with, for 20 years, literally walking from, desk to desk to artists, talking to them, and helping each other get across a finish line. And so it's such a fascinating kind of, and that's why I was kind of curious about it in terms of the, if there was any kind of corollary with what you do as well in terms of the LGBT kind of.
Well, with the LGBT, and obviously I'm a proud member of that community. So, but I don't really treat, from a business perspective, I don't really treat that client any different than I would treat any other client.
Yeah.
And you get these actors, oh yeah, my friend got this great deal from this, from this advisor, and I made all this money and this and that and the other thing. Well, ask those people what was that guy's name that had that big Ponzi scheme and all those celebrities.
Madoff.
Yeah, I mean, ask them how it worked out for them.
Yeah, right.
So, your neighbors or your friends' experience may not be your personal experience. And really all I do is I challenge my clients. I ask them a lot of questions. And when that particular thing comes up, and it comes up a lot.
Yeah.
It comes up a lot.
Yeah.
And you know what I ask them? I say, explain it to me in detail.
In what way?
Just tell me all about it.
Yeah.
What's the investment? What's the upside? What's the downside?
see what you're saying. Yeah.
What's the length of time? And I just start asking them a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And 9.95 times out of 10, they can't tell me anything other than, well, my friend made all this money and, I'm going to throw some money into it also.
Just kind of pointing at the other person and saying, well, look at him. Yeah. And that doesn't help you at all.
Right. Well, it doesn't
could,
help.
But you just don't know.
It may not help the client.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter about if it helps me or not. I provide a service and I send a bill.
Yeah. No, I don't mean that. I mean in terms of they look at that other person and say, I could be like that other person, but their situation might be completely different.
Well, that's the industry, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we all want to be Joan Crawford, and
I do,
or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
I do, Tom.
You want to be Joan Crawford?
Why not?
I'm going to be Betty Davis, and we're going to just war.
But let's face it, folks. This is reality, and
yeah.
And I want to bring up one point to kind of circle back, if I may.
Okay.
And I'll make it quick. You mentioned the whole push the button rocket mortgage, and some people that are, have no problem about starting an application. Then there's others that are completely terrified.
Yeah.
I think it gets down to the psychology of money.
That's what I'm talking about.
And their experience with money. So if they grew up in a home where, and I see this a lot with women, right? So if they had a father that never let their daughter talk about money and it was just something that the men did, then they have a very different association with it. They could be scared of it. They could hate it. There's a lot of people that grew up with means where they are big philanthropy people, right? So they give all their money away because they don't want it, right? Or they're spendthrifts, right? That's another big, group of people. So I think it all depends on, what the psychology of that person is. And that's why, we have different options, right? In starting something. And there's some people where I have to hold their hand and I wouldn't even dream about having them apply online and start it that way. I would go to their home and we would talk and we would talk about how did you grow up? I mean, if it's gets down to that point, right? Because if I sense there's something wrong, I'm not going to force anybody, right? So we get to where their comfort zone is and they start to share. And when they find out that, no, I'm not going to report their income to the IRS and I'm not going to send this to their employer. And if they don't want their spouse finding out and they're not on the loan, it's not my job to tell them, right? In fact, I can't tell them. Right. And if they're, a close personal friend, it doesn't get shared. Even with my own family, right? So I think when you break these things down, it's really about, first understanding the psychology of money and understanding any potential barriers, but then also just assuring them and just having those conversations. And I think that's what Rocket Mortgage doesn't allow you to do.
Right.
Right.
Well, it gives you the illusion.
It gives the illusion that all you have to do is push a button and you get your pre-approval letter. But you really need to have a professional there to make sure that, you're not overeager and submit everything under the sun.
Right. Which open you up to
opens
all
up
sorts
where
of issues.
all you're doing is writing letters of explanations with all these different things.
Yeah.
Right. That's big. That's really, really big. So you need to make sure that you have a professional that looks at all of these different angles for you. And then also, you're entering in the information. I mean, I had a client, they filled out their application today and, the number that I put down was very different than the number they put down.
Right.
Because it's about what the qualifying income is, not what you think you make.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So that was my piece.
Thanks, Ron.
Well, Ron, Ron and I have a
Ron was preaching. Sorry for a second.
Ron and I have a mutual.
I'm getting off my pedestal.
We've got a mutual client that we've been, working with for a number of years now, and every so often, the client will call me and say, "Oh, my friend, they live in a large condo complex. Oh, the unit down the hall just sold for, $50,000 more. So now, instantly my place is worth that much and, we want to refine it. Or, I'm paying, 4% and my neighbor's paying 3.9%. So I want to refinance and da, da, da. So I call Ron, we go through all this stuff. Ron tells me the thing. But Ron, I think it would be important for you to maybe just touch on how what the costs of these loans are. I know some lenders, will advertise, no closing costs, no fees, da. Others will have, an upfront percentage fee or something like that. What I tell people is you're going to pay some kind of a fee
you might
in
end
some
up
way.
losing in some way.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we have episodes 2, 3, and 4 that actually go through all of those things in terms of the closing costs. But in a very quick nutshell of what Brian's referring to is, we'll touch on one of them. One of them is when lenders say they have no closing costs and that there's no fees associated with them. Of course there are fees. There's always fees. Yeah. It's how it is.
They're not a charity.
We're not a charity. We are not a nonprofit 501c3. It depends on how you structure the loan, right? So you can either increase the rate. So if the base rate is 4.5, you can increase the rate to 4.75 to help cover some of those closing costs. Absolutely. Sure. No problem. Or they can go ahead and pay points. Where you can buy down the rate. So when they say, oh yeah, we can offer a 30-year fixed at 2.75. Well, okay. Well, how many points are you? What's a point, right? So yes, there's ways where, and that's a misnomer. When someone says no fees, no costs, there are costs. You're paying for it some way.
They've just found another way to layer it in.
Exactly. When they say there's no MI and it's under 20%, it just means that they're doing lender paid mortgage insurance. So again, they're going from 4.5 to 4.75, and the lender will pay for the mortgage insurance, but you're paying for it in the rate.
Yeah.
And there's dozens and dozens of different ways to do this. So that's something that, all buyers and sellers need to know.
Right.
What's the fee and what scenario works best for my individual situation, not my neighbors, not my friends, not someone I'm trying to impress or
it's transparency.
Or
it's transparency.
Right.
In all aspects with Tom, with me, with you, it's transparency, and you shouldn't compare yourself to your neighbors and friends and everybody else because everybody is different.
Keeping Up with the Joneses is a complete futile experience.
It's a hilarious movie, but as far as
is there an actual movie there?
Yes,
Keeping Up with the Joneses?
Yeah, and they actually filmed it in Atlanta, which is kind of funny. But yeah, you have to. Everything is different, right? Because a credit, someone's rate depends on 6 different factors, and your rate is going to be different than your neighbor's rate. So yeah, it's you can do this, apples to oranges or apples to apples, but forget it. It's like apples to gorillas because it's different, and it's all about your personal situation.
And I've driven realtors crazy over the years. Like this guy, this story I was telling about the guy with the barking dogs. If I would have known that, there's a really good chance I would have maybe driven over there and kind of, see what the traffic patterns are like in the morning when I know the guy sleeps till noon.
It's always a good idea to always, if you're looking at a property, to visit it at all times during the day. So you kind of get a feel for in the morning. Wait a minute, I can hear the factory next door making noise, or at night, there's a lot of coyotes around here. Holy cow,
Right, and I have 2 little Bichon Frises, or some little Yorkies or something.
Yeah.
It might not be a great idea to be looking for, hillside properties.
Right.
Do your clients ask you those kind of like really super detailed questions like that, Tom?
I'm always the ones that do. I appreciate because that means they're thinking at a different level. They're thinking at that kind of level that I'm hoping I'm acting at that level. I like to deal with educated clients. That's why I have this podcast in the first place, is because I don't have anything to hide, and I don't want any. You have these agents that are literally taking, and if they see a crack on a wall, standing in front of it, or they're finding ways to make sure that the people are less educated, that they don't have that kind of information. So absolutely, I do have clients that do, and I welcome them, but I'm always surprised by the ones that don't. I'm always, and at some point, when you start throwing things out, you don't know what's important to one person may not be important to another. And so it's not my place to kind of be driving them into a direction. Now, I will say this: when I go through a house the first time, I am brutally honest. I am unlike most agents. Like, I will literally walk through and say, "Did you see that crack there? Did you see this?" Well, because at the end of the day, if they still see it and go, "Well, but I love the house," I go, "Yep, all right, let's do it," because that's your choice. That's what you're making. But I'm doing them a disservice if, like, the floor is crooked, going, "Guys, I think there might be a foundation issue here." So
yeah, let's look into it.
yeah,
This is not the last house on the planet, people.
right. And by the way, I'm not an inspector either. An inspector is going to come in and give a completely different, higher level, you would hope,
Right.
Level of expertise in terms of education. So, we're in a weird position, you and me both, in that there's only so much we can do. We really, I can't be a psychic and try and figure out exactly what that person is concerned about
Oh,
the most.
sure you can, Tom. Yes, you can.
Here, I'm going to read the tea leaves, and here, let's do some tarot cards. And no, but I try to do as much as I can to make sure I hit as many big things as I possibly can. So,
And as a client, that's how you know when you're working with people that are focused on you.
yeah.
The service providers that ask you those kind of questions, those are the people that I think are really good people to be around you. And
that's why also, by the way, I don't want to interrupt, but I'm doing it anyway. But when I do first talk to a client, the first thing I do, though, is talk about, as much as I can, what is important to you, because then that's my priority list. Their priority list might be completely different from the next person, or even mine, right? When I look at a house, I might say, "Oh, it's important for me to have X, Y, or Z," and they might be saying, "Oh, I want A, B, C." That's, my job is to get them A, B, C, not try to push them into X,
Right.
Y, and Z. So there you go.
and that could change tomorrow also.
Absolutely.
I mean, I know when I bought my house here in the lovely San Fernando Valley, I had a very long list of things that I wanted. I wanted to be on a cul-de-sac. I wanted my backyard to be facing south, so I didn't have any sun beaming in my, windows in the morning or the evening.
Not feng shui.
I haven't really got into the feng shui, but I know somebody, who can, I
right.
can consult with for that.
Yeah.
And I've known Ron for well over a decade, and I've known Tom for a number of years also, and it's really helpful for me to be able to go to those people,
Absolutely.
to you guys.
Yeah. The feeling's mutual. And thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. I just
Really.
love talking about this kind of stuff. And, some might find it boring and whatever, but
I hope you didn't find it
really-
boring out there in radio land or podcast land, but
in the privacy of your own mind and your own life, just, ask yourself some of these questions, and I think you will be well served by doing so.
well, thank you so much for coming, Brian. Is there anything you want to plug or anything you want to talk to the folks about before we go?
Anything new and exciting?
Anything new and exciting? I'm literally setting you up with lobbing a softball at you.
Well, oh gosh. Okay, I'm just going to go right out there. There is a really cool event coming up in California in the first week of June. It's called AIDS Life Cycle. And I don't want to get too, preachy about plugging stuff.
No, that's why you're here.
It jointly benefits the Los Angeles the LA LGBT Center and the San Francisco AIDS Foundation. It's
Great.
a 545-mile bike trip
Awesome.
over 7 days from San Francisco to Los Angeles.
That's great.
I've been involved for many, many years, and that's just kind of my charity. It helps a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that need help. But I guess overall, I would encourage people, as you're having these private thoughts in your own mind, to just, try to help others in any way that you can. Not necessarily by writing a check. There's a lot of different ways you can help people.
Where would they, if folks wanted more information on that, what would be the best place to go?
I would go to AIDSLifecycle.org. There is, I'm chairing a Team Darling this year. My creative partner, Evan Darling, is going to be doing the ride.
Great. Great.
You know,
No relation.
no relation. No relation, but I can't say much more about that because I don't know. You might be hearing more things about Evan Darling very soon.
Good. And in terms of people who need help with their management of their money and want to contact you,
You can find me at briandarling.com.
fantastic. All right. Well, that's about it for today. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to leave them for us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Clarified Realty Podcast, all one word. If you have any questions about real estate or you're looking for someone to help you buy or sell a home, remember, I'm actually a licensed real estate agent. I'd love to help you out. So please email me directly at tom@clarifiedrealty.com. or give me a call at 818-335-7662. Don't be shy. Give me a ring. For more exclusive bonus content and advice between episodes, please check out our website, www.clarifiedrealty.com. Also on our homepage, you'll find links to helpful buyer and seller guides that can give you some great information for starting your home buying or home seller process. So definitely check those out. I'm on Snapchat, Twitter, and Instagram as well. My handle for all three of those are @ClarifiedRealty. Please leave feedback and reviews on iTunes or in the comment section on our page. Together, we're stronger. So if you have any questions or ways that we can make this podcast better, please let us know. My amazing theme song, Hey Now, is from the band Wolf. That's Wolf with 2 Fs. And please go check them out and like them on SoundCloud. They rock so freaking hard, the only business they need to manage is the business of making ears bleed. And just a little disclaimer, I'm licensed by the California Bureau of Real Estate. My license number is 01715353. Ron's is?
Guaranteed rate, NMLS ID 2611, NMLS ID 558706, California.
The advice we give is only for properties located in the state of California. For all other states, please contact your local real estate agent or real estate professional. Well, that's it. Ron, you all good?
Yeehaw!
Well, very good. All right, thanks for coming, everybody. And remember, the greatest thing you can ever do is make someone feel at home. Take care, and we'll see you next week.